We're going rogue, and it's definitely not because Palace is still in this competition. Let's predict the quarter-final of the Carabao Cup. Welcome back to the Woodwork. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and I bet you was expecting a Premier League game week, I think 16 review, and I was going to do it because Palace's impressive win at Brighton was going to be featured, but I thought let's do something a little bit different. The Carabao Cup is definitely heating up, getting into business time now. We're into the quarter-final stage. And there's a few interesting games in there. All 8 teams that remain are in the Premier League. But let's try and, summarise what's happening with all 8 teams within this competition. And, let's try and predict what I think the outcome will be. And you never know, I might do a little fake semi-final draw at the end. So, starting with the London derby in this Carabao Cup quarter-final, the early kick-off, if you like, 7:30 kick-off between Arsenal and Crystal Palace. Certainly not doing this video because Palace are remaining in the competition, so it's a bit easy for me to do this. But, it's Crystal Palace's first time in the Carabao Cup quarter-final since 2011. 13 years since our last appearance in this stage of the competition when we won 2-1 at Old Trafford against Manchester United, putting us through to the semi-final. So we beat a big team then. Can we beat a big team now? Now, Crystal Palace, it's fair to say, have been under some fine form lately in the Premier League. 3-1 win at Brighton. Before that was a 2-2 draw at home to Man City. And then we, drew against Newcastle as well with a last-minute equaliser as well. Drew at Villa. We've had some decent results. And for Arsenal, their title push is sort of fading away, and that was sort of confirmed after their 0-0 draw against Everton on Saturday in the Premier League. And that's a massive factor going into the Carabao Cup because it might mean more to teams than others. I don't normally go against Crystal Palace when it comes to predictions. I like to keep the faith. But I think when you look at our record at the Emirates Stadium, it's not great. I think since Palace were promoted, we've won there twice, I believe, or maybe even just the once at the Emirates Stadium. That was back in 2019 under Roy Hodgson. I think it's going to be very difficult to overcome Arsenal, especially with the injury problems that we still have in terms of Adam Wharton. Daniel Munoz is out with a suspension because he's picked up 2 yellow cards in his competition already. Eze is going to have a little bit of a late fitness test because he's got a swollen foot, which obviously is not great considering he has scored in every single round that we've played so far this season. So that's not great. It's not ideal. With Arsenal, I think it's a massive opportunity for players like Ethan Nwaneri, Gabriel Jesus, players that don't necessarily go into the Premier League 11 that can, show the Arsenal fans what they're made of, and obviously the biggest watch will be Mikel Arteta, to try and give them some minutes in the Premier League, extra minutes. And I think that they will just be too much for Palace tonight. I do think so. I'm going to go for Arsenal 2, Crystal Palace 1, and that's being generous. I don't know whether Palace will score. With Daniel Munoz being out, I think we may be playing youngster Kapora, and I think it may be a bit too much pressure to put him in defending against possibly Martinelli or Trossard in a game, in a cup quarter-final that has a lot of pressure on us. I just think we'll bow out, but I'm not going to complain. As long as we don't get humiliated, I'm not going to complain because we've done well this season in the Carabao Cup. So yeah, my first prediction, Arsenal 3, Arsenal 2, Palace 1. Next up, we have a clash between more, I would say, mid-table Premier League sides right now, between Newcastle United and Brentford. Now, I think this will be very tough for Brentford to go to an atmosphere like St James's Park and get anything out of the game. Whether they can push Newcastle to a penalty shootout is another question, though. And I think they may, but I think it will still be too, I think it'll be too hard to overcome Newcastle in a pressure penalty shootout in Newcastle's ground. The only doubt is Sven Botman after coming off injured against Leicester, I think it was, in the Premier League last weekend. So that's not good for Newcastle. But, Thomas Frank for Brentford, he's had a positive Thiago update for Igor Thiago. Not many more team news there. I just think that both will play a slightly weakened lineup, but I think both will be kind of even in the 90 minutes. But it's just a penalty shootout. And I think Newcastle will have the cutting edge. I believe it's going to be a goalless draw and Newcastle to win on penalties. So I'm going to go Newcastle 0, Brentford 0 with the star next to Newcastle because they will win the penalty shootout, going through to semi-final for the second time in 3 seasons. Next up, we've got poor old Southampton taking on Arne Slot's Liverpool. Look, I know Russell Martin got sacked, which I think needed to happen for Southampton's point of view in the Premier League. But I think this is sort of thing where they're going to ditch the Carabao Cup. And look, I know a couple of years ago, they made the semi-final against Newcastle by beating Manchester City, who went on to win the Premier League. And I believe Southampton got relegated that season. So when Southampton are on patchy runs of form and not good form at all, they turn it on in the Carabao Cup against bigger sides. But I think Liverpool will prove to be too much, as they proved a couple of weeks ago when they beat Southampton by 3-2, where it actually wasn't a bad performance from Southampton. It was just Liverpool proved too much. I think that's going to be the outcome here again this evening. I reckon the score will be Southampton 1, Liverpool 3. And I think Liverpool will go through, as well as Newcastle and Arsenal, unfortunately Arsenal. And then we have the final game tomorrow evening before the real draw has been decided. And it's Tottenham against Manchester United. A massive game for both clubs. Obviously, Manchester United haven't been on the finest Premier League form. Yes, they won the Manchester Derby, but they're still, not great positional-wise in the table. Spurs are even worse off, I think, now in the Premier League table. It's the two big 6 sides that have not impressed in the Premier League so far this season, to be honest with you. And obviously, it's massive pressure for Ange Postecoglou with Spurs because he's been talking about winning trophies and stuff like that. And obviously, Tottenham haven't won a trophy since 2008, which obviously is a massive drought for a team like Spurs. But will they overcome Manchester United? I think they might, and it might come as a bit of a shock to people, seeing as Manchester United won the Carabao Cup 2 seasons ago. I just think Tottenham, they proved themselves against Manchester City. There's no reason why they can't do it against Manchester United. And I reckon the final score will actually be Spurs 2, Manchester United 0. And I think that may come as a shock to people, but I just think Tottenham will prove way, way too much. And I did say at the end that I would do a little fake draw, and it's actually turned out really well. So Tottenham, who'll beat Manchester United in my fake draw, will be at home to Arsenal in a North London derby. An all North London derby semi-final being played at both grounds, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and the Emirates. And then we've got Liverpool at home to Newcastle, with then Newcastle being at home to Liverpool in the second leg. If I had to predict the final, I would say that Arsenal would probably turn out to be too much for Tottenham, and Liverpool will be too much for Newcastle, making it an Arsenal-Liverpool final, which would be really, really entertaining as a final in mid-March. But anyway, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys liked it. Like, share, subscribe to the Woodwork. You can see my Palace videos on my channel, Palace Player Mason. Link will be in the description, including a vlog for Arsenal Crystal Palace tonight, because I am going to the game tonight in the Carabao Cup. Let's hope we don't lose 2-1 in the end. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon. And have a very, very Merry Christmas.